So let's talk a little bit about the game this weekend. Um, I believe I was going to pull this up here. I want to say Iowa State opened up as a favorite. They opened up as like a 4.5 point favorite. Um, I think it's come down just a little bit because, ooh, excuse me. Let's see here. So per Vegas Insider, well, that can't be right. That's got to be the wrong year. Um, let's see. Okay, so there we go. So per bet MGM, they opened as a 4.5 point favorite, which is probably about right. But I sorry, just had I'm just trying to work through something real quick. So I'd be curious to see what happens here with Deion Sanders at this one. If he, I mean, assuming he's going to still be on the sidelines, because he mentioned this week that they think he's got more blood clots and he is another tough spot. But last week they go on the road. They played TCU close for a couple for a half, maybe half and three, another part of the third quarter. Then TCU eventually pulled away and won 35-21. But they played with TCU for a while. They were ahead. I think they were up on TCU by 2 touchdowns at one point. Yeah, they were up 14-0 earlier in the game. Then obviously TCU came back and won. But Colorado's they've got some players. Like I said, Slater started the season, then he got benched for a game or two, and then he's back now. He's completing like 66% of his passes, but he's only got 7 touchdowns to 4 interceptions um, on the season. He does run a little bit. He's a good runner. He's actually now I'm looking at it, he's got more attempts on the he's actually got more attempts on the team than anybody else, even more than Micah Welch. 56 carries, 213 yards for 3.8 yard average, 5 touchdowns. I mean, so they'll use him basically 50-50 as a runner and a passer. And then Michael Welch is a good running back. Draylon Miller is a good running back. They don't use Draylon like a ton. Draylon Miller is a wide receiver, but they will use him in. They'll use him as a running back sometimes. They'll use him in jet sweeps and stuff like that. Amarian Miller is their leading receiver this year. He's got 17 catches for 289 yards, I should say, in a few touchdowns. Joseph Williams is in there as well with 16 catches, 242 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The offense is solid. It's not like amazing, but it's solid. The defense is it's okay, I guess. There's not really anybody that blows you away on that. It's especially since they've losing Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders Jr. and Shiloh Sanders and all that. Losing a few of those guys, their defense is taking a little bit of a step back. It's fine, it's serviceable, but there isn't necessarily anybody on this team that kind of blows you away. Keaton Wade is their leading sack guy. 2.5 sacks this year. With that, he's kind of a linebacker, edge rusher kind of guy. I mean, their defensive line is decent, and it's coached by Warren Sapp, which I guess I mean a decent chunk of Colorado's position coaches are like old NFL guys. Like I think Marshall Faulk's on staff, Warren Sapp, a few of those kinds of guys. This is a game where if Iowa State just goes out, doesn't beat themselves, Rocco makes the throws he normally makes, the offensive line continues to play well, they can run the ball a little bit. Iowa State should be able to win this one by a couple scores. When Iowa State's playing well, when this team is playing at their best, they're at least a couple scores better than this team. But Colorado is a talented team. They're athletic. That's one of the things that's been the trademark of Deion's team so far, is that even if they're not the best at everything, they are at minimum very good athletes. And they've got some guys that if Jamison Patton is not paying attention, or he's playing, or he's not doing his job in deep coverage again, they can burn him. They absolutely can. They've got receivers that can run. So this would be on the safeties for staying solid in coverage. This will be the linebackers for being disciplined when reading read options, RPOs, things like that, because Slater absolutely is a threat to run. And you know, that takes eye discipline. Slater this year is a lot like Sorsby was last year, where they like he can throw, but they don't love to have him throw. They mostly want him to run. They're gonna use him mostly in the running game. He's gonna throw some, he'll throw some picks, but he can make a few throws, which is obviously that was Sorsby last year. Sorsby this year has been very, very good. We saw it a little bit last week too, where he was just really good. Um, well, yes and no. He made a couple really good throws. He made some good like scrambles on the run and stuff like that, but he also missed a lot of pretty simple throws. I was not as impressed with his accuracy as I was with like the other parts of their game plan. But I said this is one I would say just goes in. If you go in, you take care of business and you take care of the things you normally take care of, where you don't turn the ball over, you don't commit penalties, um, you make the easy throws, you get a little bit push in the running game, you don't give up deep plays, you know, and you make Colorado work their way up the field. This is a game that I would say should win by a score, by 10 points. The question is, will they? And I really do think though that this, my title of this video at least implies, I do think that this game really can be uh, two losses isn't well, I don't know, two losses might be enough in this year of the Big 12. Two losses in conference might be enough to knock you out of the title game conversation. One already is like you can afford one, but two is where it gets really dicey and you might need some help from other teams, because Texas Tech is probably not losing a game. Their schedule here from here on out is very soft. And we thought Houston might be able to give them some trouble, but they absolutely did not. Uh, Texas Tech's almost certainly going to be in there. They're probably going to be undefeated. Um, Arizona State looks pretty decent right now. Cincinnati is now they're now a contender here. The Utah still seems like they might be someplace, where you have, like, obviously gets put in, if there probably is going to be a bunch of teams on a one loss tiebreaker. And if Iowa State loses this weekend, you're not involved in that. And if you lose this weekend, you need help from a lot of teams, if you're going to try to make it to the Big 12 title game. So this weekend kind of really is a make or break in terms of if you think you want to try to make it to the title game and try to win a Big 12 title. This is a must win game. You have no choice, but you basically have no choice but to win out. If you want to be able to get in and not have to rely on a bunch of teams losing games that they probably aren't going to be favored to lose. Um, you have to win out, and it beyond just that, beyond just winning, so that way you can keep your goals alive. If they go in this weekend and lay another egg and look bad defensively, and the offense sputters a little bit, at that point, it depends on how it looks, but at that point, you're almost starting to say, okay, we probably need to recalibrate this thing and reset our expectations a little bit and say, okay, start the season, we thought, hey, this could be a 10, 11, 12 win football team. And now, if you lose this weekend at Colorado, I mean, granted, you're still 5-2, like you're like something would have really, and like you still have Oklahoma State on the schedule and stuff like that. So I mean, like something would really have to go wrong to not make a bowl game or something like that. But however much that's actually worth anymore. But laying an egg the second week in a row would be pretty disheartening. And I think I think it would change the mood a little bit for this season, just with people. I mean, to an extent, there's not a lot Iowa State can do about it, because you're missing some key players with injuries, but that doesn't stop. Jontez and Cooper, those are the two big injuries you got besides Kyle Conradi. And missing Kyle Conradi, I think, objectively hurt them last game. Like, it potentially prevented them from winning, not being able to have those field goals available to you. But besides that, it's Coop and Jontez. And the replacements are pretty good. Like they were pretty decent, like certainly serviceable to a point where like they were not the reason Iowa State lost by any stretch. So, you know, the injuries aren't the injuries to other people aren't what made Rocco miss those throws. They aren't what made um they aren't what made James Neal jump on a false start early in the game. Yeah. That's James Neal he's played a lot of football at Iowa State, and that's a play he needs to be better on. Just flat out. That's there. I mean, that's all there is to it, really. So it is make or break, both in terms of literally making the Big 12 title game, or even just in terms of feeling like things are still progressing forward. And this is kind of I thought I shared a little bit on the Discord server that I had where I don't I don't enjoy the feeling now. So now that Iowa State has established itself as like it's a good program that's going to be good pretty much every year, and in a lot of years, if in a lot of years they're going to be able to be in the conversation as a conference title contender. Um, but it still feels as though we are still scrapping and clawing for like legitimacy at the national level. And I mean, part of that is our own fault because we were so bad for a long time. But it's like Matt Campbell has a really really great run to start his career there, and it's like he goes and wins a Fiesta Bowl, and then they have a down year in 2021. They underperformed. They absolutely did, but it's like, oh, the Campbell's just obviously it's always a 7-5 football team under Matt Campbell. It's like they finished 7-5 one time, but then it's like, well, you got to, obviously got to 10-2 in the regular season last year, and they went to the Big 12 title game. You got blown out in the Big 12 title game, but that was a very, very injured Iowa State football team and a very healthy and hungry Arizona State team that had Cam Scadaboo. And, so that was already, retrospectively, that was a game that Iowa State was basically set up to lose. But it's like, well, now if Iowa State doesn't have a really good season again this year, people say, "Wow, that was just a that was just a one hit wonder type thing." Like, it's annoying because it feels like Iowa State has more work to do than other teams, but in just in terms of like national perception, because they're not blue chip recruiters. They're not they're not a program that has a 50% blue chip rating. Bud Elliott's magical have 50% blue chips on your roster. Otherwise, we don't give a shit about you and we don't think you're worth a fuck. Um, that metric pisses me off to no end. Um, but I it's a little frustrating too, especially they were able to overcome it last season. They were able to overcome all that adversity last season, which was super super impressive. And you hope they can do it again this year. But man, in 2 seasons where you really wanted to see Iowa State establish itself as a perennial contender, having all these injuries show up is so frustrating. It's like if Iowa State was mostly it was 95% healthy, and like the injuries were really just kind of like depth pieces, backups, third stringers, stuff like that. If that was all the injuries that were there and you had all your starters there, there's no doubt in my mind Iowa State wins that Cincinnati game by a few touchdowns, like a couple touchdowns. Um, and we're, I would say it's in the top 10 and stuff like that. Like it's our vibe right now is totally different, but it just feels like with the John Tez thing and the Cooper thing, and then Carson Hansen goes down to an injury and Kyle's down, and Rocco gets lit up on that targeting play, and Chase Soul goes out for a little bit, and now he came back in, but Chase Soul goes out for a little bit, and then he's cramping, and then Quentin Taylor's cramping in the game, stuff like that. It's just the endless barrage of injuries. Just it's just it's just demoralizing at a certain point, and it's like it's all coming at like an unfortunate time for Iowa State, but they credit to them, they kept fighting, they made adjustments, they against Cincinnati. But this weekend is another opportunity. You get to go on the road to Colorado. It sounds like I've heard stories of quite a few Iowa State fans are going out to the game in Boulder. I think they're kind of excited to go play an old Big 12 team. We haven't been to been haven't been to Boulder in well over a decade. Almost bordering on 2 decades now. So I think this is a winnable game. I mean, obviously Iowa State's favorite on the road, but it's a winnable game against a team that like is pesky enough to stay with you and to give you some problems. But if you just do their thing, Iowa State can win this game if as long as they play a solid football game. We can get back on the winning train, get into the bye week, and get healthy, and then prepare for the toughest 3 game stretch of the season, which is BYU, Arizona State, and then at TCU, and then which is that's a tough stretch. But if you can come out of that, if you can come out of that 3-0, we're feeling great, and none of this ever happened. So that's all there really is to it. So we're gonna get wrapping up here because in a few minutes I got to go record Down the Pipe in Natty Light for the Wide Right Natty Light Podcast Network with Marchie Murdoch and Jordan Harris. So uh, Wide Right people, you can look for that in your feeds tomorrow morning. But I appreciate everybody in the comments today with chat in the engaging conversation and all that. I really really appreciate that. Um, we'll be back again on Saturday. We'll have post game, and then we'll be back again next week, normal time on Tuesday, for the weekly show. So appreciate everybody for tuning in, for chatting, all that. Hope to see you again on Saturday and next Tuesday. Everybody have a great rest of your week. Go Cyclones.